Hey, this is Trey Kay, host of West Virginia Public Broadcasting's podcast, Us and Them. 2 days after the 2024 presidential election, we brought together the Us and Them dinner party. Now, since the run-up of the 2020 election, we've gathered together 8 West Virginians, 4 conservative and 4 liberal, diverse in age, gender, and race, to gather together for a meal and talk about the issues that divide us. This year's gathering was our most honest and emotionally charged to date. Tensions ran high at the table, mirroring the atmosphere in households across the country. The emotions were still raw from the election, and we asked our guests to speak their minds.
What makes me feel better about the election is closing the border, price of a dozen eggs not being $5, gasoline less than $2, 6 granddaughters who will not have to worry about a male coming in the restroom with them, things like that.
But what happens if they have a complication in their pregnancy with their husband?
You're not aware. I have a granddaughter and 3 great grandchildren from a 15-year-old pregnancy. And the daughter is a nurse with a degree in psychology. And I supported her through 7 years of college. And the granddaughter who has provided me 3 great grandchildren. I wouldn't have those. If she had chose to have got an abortion, she could have went to the school counselor, and at this time, she could have went to the school counselor, who could have went to the judge, Rick Facemeyer and Clay, and she could have had an abortion that I would have never known anything about. So,
Frank, you were going to...
I think, and that's wonderful that happened to your family, and
yeah.
that's
it doesn't happen with all families.
But I believe what she's referring to is, let's take, if you're trying to have a child and you have an ectopic pregnancy. So right now in a lot of states in the United States, if I go to an ER and I seek treatment, they'll immediately treat me. If, let's say, my wife goes, they call the legal counsel. And so literally they have to monitor, when her hemoglobin gets too low because she's bleeding internally, when they're going to help. That's the main issue. There is so much ambiguity between, and I really believe this, like when people write these laws, they write them from a theoretical premise that they can argue with their buddies in a back room, but they've never cracked open a medical book to actually know how a woman's body works. This is coming from a Republican here. And the numbers don't lie with it. And you have Texas's fetal mortality rate is so terrible right now that they're thinking about leaving the CDC committee that they're on for all 50 states because it can't hide it anymore. I mean, it's created an atmosphere in which you have physicians that are promising to do no harm, but they can't risk their medical license because in their minds they got to help everybody else. For just sorry.
No. I guess I want to ask a question that might. Well, okay, Lexi, you had something you want to say, and then I'm gonna.
I was also just going to add too. It sounds like she had a strong support system that not that many other women may have, and I think about that too in terms of being able to have somebody at that age or even later on where they're at a state where they could actually continue with that pregnancy, where they could support that child, where this isn't something, it can just be a completely different circumstance. And I just think that it's kind of crazy to look at it as one absolute. And again, I'm not saying she's obviously extremely fortunate to have you guys, but not every woman is, and we don't know every single woman's circumstance.
Hey, thanks for listening to this. We who've been working on the Us and Them project for the past decade believe that division and polarization in America is the issue of our times. We're here to wrap our arms and our minds around this challenge. In a splintered world, we believe that listening is one of the last bridges we have towards understanding.